Joe Brady gets promoted to Bills head coach, and Mike McCarthy lands with another coaching job in Pittsburgh. We dig into the fantasy impact of these hires on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Fantasy Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcasting network. I'm one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL, fantasy, and betting for sportingnews.com.
We have more coaching hires. The Bills officially promoted their OC, Joe Brady, to head coach. Mike McCarthy going to the Steelers as a Steelers fan. This one is not exciting, that's for sure. But I think for fantasy, it's not the worst, right? So we'll get to the fantasy impact. I don't think it's going to help the Steelers get any better as a team. It could help their fantasy output. And then Brian Daboll ends up with the Titans over some other teams that were eyeing him, like the Eagles and the Browns and the Bills before they moved on with Joe Brady. So we'll get to all of that today. Let's start with this Joe Brady news and how this impacts the Bills moving forward. Because, I mean, in terms of like where the confusion for next year and being like, oh, I don't know what this new offense will look like, right? Like, nothing's going to really change with the offense because it's Joe Brady getting promoted. So with Josh Allen and James Cook, it's going to be like, well, we know exactly what we're going to get from them basically outside of injuries.
Yeah, let's hope that Joe Brady kind of helps himself with a bit of a game decision manager, someone like that, because he's so young. Because I don't know if he can pull it off the way that Kellen Moore was, calling plays, and really, it took away from him early in the season. Then he had the right quarterback. So it's a lot similar to Kellen Moore being elevated from the Eagles offensive coordinator to the Saints head coach. Now, these guys have been tabbed for jobs for a while. They're extremely young, and they both got their shots, still very young, in this league. And Joe Brady, I think they saw maybe they could go after Brian Daboll to keep the continuity with Josh Allen, or at least go back to a coach that he thrived under, at least as an offensive coordinator. So they said, where are we going next? I think they looked at Nathan Scheelhaas there to bring him over from the Rams. They said maybe, hey, we have that type of player or coach in our own midst, right? I mean, we have a young offensive coordinator who's pretty good and helped our quarterback turn into an MVP and helped our running back lead the NFL in rushing. So this is great news for them that you're going to have nothing change. The terminology, the play calling, the concepts, they're all going to be what they're used to. So I think they realize, hey, we don't need to break this and fix this part of the team. Now, they do need some fixing on defense, and that's going to be determining how far they go. But for our purposes, for fantasy, you got to be happy about Josh Allen and James Cook. Now, this actually may not be the best news for Dalton Kincaid, because we were hoping with a different OC or different direction that he could explode. Now, injuries have played a part with what he's doing. He was in the 20s as a tight end just a couple of years ago. He jumped up to tight end 10 this year, but still, we're looking for like a big payday, right? We want Kyle Pitts the same way to shoot up, and he did this year to some degree with his potential as a first-round tight end. Now, Dalton Kincaid has been limited a bit in the Joe Brady offense. They continue to play Dawson Knox. They do play a lot of 12 personnel. So can maybe they focus a little bit more on Dalton Kincaid and make him kind of the number one target in this team, like a Travis Kelce, or is it going to be more of the same that we've seen?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of the same because it's been working, right? The issue with the Bills not getting over the hump is not their offense, right? I mean, there were a couple games each season that's like, okay, what happened to the offense? Like in that Falcons game, sure. But for the majority of the time, like the offense is the reason they're winning these games. While the defense can be highly inconsistent over the last few years. And then once they get to the playoffs, that's definitely when that defense always is allowing over 30 points. And just like, it doesn't matter what the Bills put up because the defense just continued to put up points against them. Now, I think that's why they moved on from Sean McDermott. Again, like you said, we have to wait to see who they bring in for the defensive play caller, but all we have to care about is this offense. And I think this makes it very easy for us next year to rank these guys. Like maybe you don't want to take Josh Allen because he will be drafted so high, but he will be the quarterback 1 in consensus rankings. At least I think he should be. He's been the quarterback 1, quarterback 2, quarterback 1, quarterback 1, quarterback 2 over the last 5 years. So never lower than quarterback 2. And he's done it multiple different ways now with multiple different coordinators. And now 2 straight years with Joe Brady as the play caller. So I'm not worried about that. And I'm right with you. Like Dalton Kincaid, it's going to be hard to like say he's going to make a big jump, right? Because he's already played 3 years in the league. This last year, tight end 10 kind of feels like maybe that's maybe a ceiling unless he has a double digit touchdown year. But they've been dying for a top target. And even then, like Kincaid could have been the Kelsey of his offense, the Travis Kelsey of his offense, and it still just didn't happen. So I think they really desperately need to add a true wide receiver 1. You can't. Josh Allen's getting it done, but like having Khalil Shakir lead your team with 719 receiving yards, that's not going to work. And he was the only Bills wide receiver with more than 404 receiving yards. And there's a bunch of guys with like 4 touchdowns this year, but you need a more dominant guy. I think Aiyuk will be available, not even by trade. He might get cut by the 49ers. That could be an interesting signing. He shouldn't be as expensive as he was when he signed with the 49ers. I wouldn't like them to go get Juwan Jennings. Maybe like if they want to pay up for George Pickens, go for it. But they got to find someone for him, and maybe it's through the draft. But the Keon Coleman situation, I think, has passed and failed miserably.
Yeah, Keon Coleman. I mean, how much can I talk about one draft pick? One draft pick did not ruin.
Because it's like, okay, he's already feels. I'm sure he doesn't feel great that his career is not going well.
No,
and then
I mean,
for them to be in the media, yeah.
When he came in, he was a little bit banged up coming out of college, and there were some things like that. And look, he didn't ask to be like dumped on this much. I mean, they made that move and they moved away from Xavier Worthy. Xavier Worthy has not exactly been totally healthy and lighting it up for the Chiefs. So, I mean, if Worthy was that great of a player and they just passed on him and gave the Chiefs that player, then I would be a lot more upset. But Keon Coleman, look, he's not the reason why they've lost or won, right? I mean, he's there. He's made a few big plays. I mean, when you're relying on Brandon Cooks because your guys are hurt in the playoffs, I mean, that's a problem. When you need Brandon Cooks and Khalil Shakir to save your day in a big playoff game, that's not going to work. And we saw what happened. I mean, things didn't break their way in Denver. So we'll see what they do. There's a lot of options in the first round. There's the kid Denzel Boston out of Washington that I like that could be around. I don't know if Carnell Tate is going to drop to them in the first round. I mean, it's going to be hard to get past the 15-20 range. You also have a couple other receivers that should go much earlier, Jordan Tyson, Mekhi Lemon. Will they be interested in trading up to get one of these receivers? How aggressive do they want to be? Do they want to splurge on a Pickens? Can they splurge on a Pickens? They want to, because he's another mercurial guy you bring in. Is he good for that locker room chemistry and what you're trying to get done with the situation when you moved on from Stephon Diggs with some concerns of the same thing? So there's a lot of things that they have to weigh, but they need playmakers to help out. They just need one guy that can win battles as an, even if it's a slot guy. I mean, Shakir did as best as he could. They need an Amon-Ra St. Brown type or someone on the outside that's a big play threat that can come through. So it hasn't really panned out there. So let's see how it plays out. But they still have a to-do list. At least one of them is not trying to figure out how Josh Allen and James Cook fit in the offense.
Yeah, exactly. And to hit on the Xavier Worthy thing, because it keeps popping up in media and everything, like they could have had Xavier Worthy. They could have had Xavier Worthy. It's like Worthy in his career has averaged 37.7 receiving yards per game. Keon Coleman has averaged 37 receiving yards per game. So 0.7 different. Coleman has one more touchdown than Worthy in his career, even though he played 5 fewer games. And he's averaged 3 more yards per reception than Worthy, when Worthy's supposed to be the speedster big play guy. So I don't think that if the Bills just went with Worthy, it would have fixed everything. I mean, I don't know. I just think it's all silly. But yes, they need to add wide receiver help. We'll see who they add there. But the Joe Brady signing and hiring him, promoting him to head coach makes things easy for us to kind of predict for next season. Let's move on to the Steelers. This will be much, much harder to predict. We don't know who the quarterback is going to be, the wide receivers, the running backs, any of that. But we do know Mike McCarthy will be the head coach.
All right, this episode, Locked On Fantasy Football, is brought to you by Prize Picks. We've had a good run giving you the Prize Picks of the week here late in the weeks as we get you prepped here all the way through the divisional playoffs and the conference championship. The big game is almost here. There's no better way to stay locked into every moment than with Prize Picks, the daily fantasy app where it always feels good to be right. With football season coming down to its final game, now it's the perfect time to close it out strong. Prize Picks makes watching a game even more exciting by letting you build simple lineups around player projections. No drafts, no waiting, just football action all the way through the big game. Prize Picks is incredibly easy to get started. Pick two or more players and choose more or less on their projections. We always go more here when we give our recommendations here at Locked On Fantasy Football, but you can go less. It makes watching games way more engaging, especially during the big game. Great way to keep playing fantasy here, even when the season-long leagues are finished. You can, of course, do it on multiple picks. We got NBA, soccer, all that good stuff that you can also look out. And don't forget about their special feature, the early payouts, will let you cash out if a player gets off to a hot start. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 on lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. It's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. This episode, Locked On Fantasy Football, is also brought to you by Robinhood. What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house. It's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood prediction markets changes the game. It's people moving the action. So momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now I can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play by play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood, now available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. Futures and cleared swaps trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives LLC, a registered futures commission merchant and swap firm. All right, it is time to continue the show here on Locked On Fantasy Football, but we're giving you a lot of good information for the offseason here as we see the coaching hires. We're going to react to everything that happens. The OCs are changing all across the league. We're breaking that down for you. Sometimes the situations don't change, and we need to update you on that, like the Bills. We know what's going on with the Steelers. The Titans are making moves. All these teams have new coaches. It changes the game in fantasy, and the best way to keep up with all that is to join the Everydayer Club. Here to make Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Well, now you can offer us a little bit more and get really special access here to our Discord channel, things that we have special for you to stay in touch with Locked On Fantasy Football, connect with the show year-round, and also get ad-free episodes. So really appreciate it if you get on that, and we want to bring it to you year-round, and you joining the Everydayer Club here on Locked On would really help with that. LockedOnFantasyFootball.supercast.com. Again, go to LockedOnFantasyFootball.supercast.com to sign up for the Everydayer Club for Locked On Fantasy Football today. All right, Michelle, it is time to look at your Steelers. They have a hire. It is Pittsburgh native Mike McCarthy. That's all I'm going to say as a descriptor. I'll let you go with the rest here. So
I'm pretty sure it's the only reason he's hired. It's literally like the emotional
one
sentiment.
Other reason, maybe. Okay. There's one other reason, maybe. So what does this mean? Mike McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers had a breakup, and then Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur had a breakup, and Aaron Rodgers and basically everyone else has a breakup. Now, Aaron Rodgers back with Mike McCarthy. McCarthy said in his opening press conference with the Steelers that he would love to have Rodgers back. Do you think Rodgers will be back, and this is why this move was made?
I don't know. Rodgers now, Mike McCarthy left, and it felt like it had like a kind of a bad ending to the McCarthy-Rodgers ending in Green Bay. And then obviously Robert Saleh gets fired with Aaron Rodgers under center with the Jets. And then Mike Tomlin coaches Rodgers for 1 year, and he's like, all right, I'm out. Peace out. I don't really think he's leaving because of Rodgers, but this is just silly. I do think that Aaron Rodgers coming back is the most likely prediction, right? With Mike McCarthy there. It just depends on how the relationship is. But I don't think they would have hired Mike McCarthy if he didn't feel like he could have a good relationship with Rodgers and bring him back, because there really aren't a lot of options for the Steelers at quarterback this offseason. They either take another risk on a first round quarterback that shouldn't be a first round quarterback, like they did with Kenny Pickett in that terrible draft class, right? And waste another first round pick. There's not really any free agents unless they want to sign Malik Willis. I don't think that's going to fix anything. I can't picture him with Mike McCarthy. Maybe they trade for Mac Jones, but no, that's not like that. Mac Jones would be for a team that has an amazing defense like the Texans, right? It only makes sense for him to go to a team that's like they just need a game manager. So I guess I see Aaron Rodgers back here with Mike McCarthy. I will say with McCarthy, do I think they're going to go 8-9, 9-8 every season like they did with Mike Tomlin and get killed in the wild card round if they make it? Absolutely. But Mike McCarthy has had a top 5 offense a lot of times as a head coach. So 3 straight seasons with Dallas from 2021 to 2023. His last year in 2024, when he got fired, Dak missed 9 games that season. And that was the one year he wasn't top 5. He was top 1 in 2 of those 3 seasons. And then we know he had really great offensive seasons with the majority of the time with the Packers. So there's a little hope here that there could be some fantasy points in terms of the Steelers offense next year, but who's going to be the wide receivers outside of DK Metcalf? Who will be the running backs?
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing. The offenses traditionally are pass happy, about 60% or more passing that we've seen in the McCarthy era with the Cowboys. And I looked at them this year. They kind of kept a lot of those concepts here with Brian Schottenheimer, but maybe ran a little bit more effectively. So, look, the Steelers, however, need to become a little bit more balanced. So this has been the issue, and sometimes they simply can't run the ball. They're way down there in rushing production, and I think maybe that was getting frustrating for Mike Tomlin, where you want them to run a little bit better to help their defense and play more complementary football, but maybe it's going in the other direction, right? Put that defense in position to make some plays. Jump on some teams with the passing game so you can get ahead, play with leads instead of playing these low-scoring kind of battles of attrition that you've seen. Like, I think that's where the Steelers need to get out of. They need to open things up, and I think McCarthy can do that. He's a very good offensive coach. He's had a lot of experience going back to his days with the Saints, 49ers. He's been a very good just offensive schemer. This is why he's been on 3 teams that have won a lot of Super Bowls over the years, right? The Packers, Cowboys, and now Steelers. I think he's well respected. He's older at 62, so they go in a different direction. So I think the thing that you're going to see is they're going to need some help from Omar Khan, the GM. They need to get help at receiver, not just one guy. I think 2. I think you go sign somebody out there. Maybe it's a Wan'Dale Robinson, someone who can make a few plays in the middle of the field in the slot, and then go get a big dude like a Carnell Tate or the Denzel Boston that I was talking about earlier, who can stretch the field, or someone who can complement DK Metcalf well, or do something there so you can take advantage of Rodgers still having a strong arm here. Use a little bit more 12 personnel, mix it up with their tight ends, all that good stuff. So I think you'll have a positive effect on their offense for sure. I mean, Arthur Smith, I don't know how he went to Ohio State after this, but he was a disaster. He just wasn't good. He hasn't been a good play caller since he left Tennessee. This is going to give them their best offensive mind in quite some time. So I think there's some optimism. And the other thing you're going to look at, Michelle, is like, do you believe in these running backs a little bit more? Now, the interesting thing is Jaylen Warren had a big year, but Kenneth Gainwell also came on, but he's a free agent. Do you think they'll re-sign him? What do you kind of feel like the Steelers' offensive priorities are this offseason?
Yeah, it's going to be hard because they have to fix up their offensive line a bit. They've whiffed on some draft picks that are struggling. And then, Jaylen Warren was fine, right? I think he was better than I expected him to be, but I really would love him just like either Gainwell or Warren should be the change of pace guy. I love Gainwell. I think he should get paid a bit on the free agency market, not like a ton, but maybe would be more than the Steelers are willing to give their change of pace running back. I would love Gainwell to personally go to the 49ers with Christian McCaffrey. I think that could be a great duo together. But Warren, I think should go back to a change of pace guy. Maybe they can bring in a bigger guy that can get those rough yards. Even if it's Tyler Algier, like bring in Tyler Algier, then you still have the speed of Warren and the passing abilities. Or, if you want to re-sign Gainwell, but I would like a cheaper guy that could really take the brunt of getting a lot of carries. And I think Algier could be that. But with wide receivers, they definitely need to add just anybody else to go with DK Metcalf. Now, we did see Mike McCarthy succeed with the Cowboys with just CeeDee Lamb, right? I mean, it was a lot of CeeDee Lamb, and he used his tight end. So possibly, Pat Freiermuth has some hope here, or maybe Darnell Washington. It'll be interesting. There's going to be so many changes with this team. But if you're a Steelers fan, I don't think there's going to be much changes with the success of the team. And we'll see who they bring in as the defensive-minded person, because that's going to be pretty important too.
Yeah, I think a player like Juwan Jennings, hear me out here. I know he's going from one team potentially that you like to another, but he's a good route runner. He catches everything. You need some guys, more guys that can get open for Aaron Rodgers that he can trust, right? They're going to make the right decisions on the field, get themselves open. Not just DK Metcalf, who's trying to run fast and use his body to get open, right? You need some more technically sound people that Rodgers likes, and not just people he's played with before. Like, those guys are getting too old. Like, they're not bringing back Devontae Adams to play with him in any other scenario the rest of his career. So he's got to find some other guys to help make those plays. So technically sound guys. Again, Metcalf is going to be better if there's some support there that you can throw to elsewhere. I think Metcalf is better when he has a Tyler Lockett type, right? And then when he's not just the man. So we'll see how it plays out here for him. But I think it's cautiously optimistic. I think I would look at with the Steelers offense next year for the improvements with Rodgers possibly returning.
Now we have a new offensive play caller with the Titans. It's Brian Daboll. He lands there after, the Bills didn't hire him as head coach. It seems like he may have chose the Titans over the Eagles. We don't know all that information, but the Eagles are struggling to find an OC that wants their job, it feels like. But let's talk about how Brian Daboll affects the Titans offense, specifically Cam Ward going into next season. We'll get to that to close out today's show. This episode is brought to you by Indeed. If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how much that can impact your business. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs puts your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates faster who will actually make a real difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all the boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of the show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help you give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. Just go to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it right with Indeed. All right, let's finish up today's show talking about Brian Daboll going to the Titans. It will be very interesting to see what he can do with Cam Ward moving forward. All we've seen from Brian Daboll so far throughout his coaching career is working with dual threat quarterbacks, whether it be Josh Allen or Daniel Jones or Jackson Dart. Now, Cam Ward last year did not run very much, right? He only had 2 games with over 22 rushing yards, only 159 rushing yards on the ground, and no more than 11 rushing yards in any of his last 6 games of the season. So what we need from Brian Daboll when it comes to Cam Ward being a good, a solid fantasy asset is get him to run the ball more, right? And then obviously getting him better pass catching weapons would be key as well.
Yeah, this is a big, big get by the Titans. I mean, there are all these teams fighting for Brian Daboll. The Eagles were looking at him. You had the Browns trying to hire him. You had the Ravens looking at him to some degree. You had just a battle, including the Bills, trying to get him there to maybe reconnect with Josh Allen. So For the Titans to land him, I think he just probably said, look, where can I attach myself to a young quarterback? Hey, if I'm not going to be with Jackson Dart, I might as well go to the other first round quarterback here from 2025, Cam Ward, the number 1 overall pick. There's a lot that you can fix with Cam Ward, and he got better. He put together a string of multiple touchdown games down the stretch. So that's what you wanted to see. I think Mike McCoy and that interim staff was pretty good after Brian Callen had no clue what he was doing here with Cam Ward. I felt really, really sad for Ward in those first few games. But now this kid, like, you got to get him the right weapons. So the offensive line, they've invested a little bit. I think they need to do a little bit more. So that's going to be on the priority list. The other thing you look at with their offense, like how much you trust the receivers they have now. Like Chimere Dike, good all-purpose player, but is he a reliable guy that you're going to throw to? The slot, we're not quite sure, right? Then you have Alec Imanor, and we'll see if Calvin Ridley is even thought about to be returned to the mix. I would say no. Try to get the youth movement going. Chinga Conquo is a free agent, but Gunnar Helm has some special qualities as a tight end that I would look at. So there's some pieces that you can see the parallels. I mean, tight end was a avenue to get Dart and Allen on track here in the previous 2 stops. So that's something to look at. The wide receiver go-to veteran receiver is probably in the mix, right? You had Malik Neighbors was kind of a veteran receiver until he got hurt, and Stephon Diggs was the guy. So I think they'll be in the market to add one of these receivers. Will they go after George Pickens? I mean, we'll see. I don't know. But the Titans have some potential here. So I like it. Brian Daboll is very good with young quarterbacks. We've seen it before. So this is as best as it could get for Cam Ward. I'm really shocked that they were able to get him with all these heavier hitters in the mix, trying to get Daboll. But good for them. And maybe this is a good kind of endorsement that he sees a lot of talent in Ward. So watch out for Ward. This could be good. And I also think you talked about his running. I think it's going to be good for the overall running game. The Giants were a pretty good running game this season, even without Cam Scadaboo healthy. Tyrone Tracy was out in the lineup. So this could be also good news for Tony Pollard, who was RB30. He had 1,000 yards, but he was somehow only RB30 because he didn't score. So this could be good for the all aspects of the Titans offense going forward.
It really can. And they have a really early draft pick at 4th overall. So if they want to fix up their offensive line or at least the left tackle, because they signed Dan Moore to a pretty big contract last offseason. That made no sense to me. He was terrible with the Steelers. And then they paid up for him. And then maybe they take a wide receiver early as well. We'll see what they do there. But Cam Moore could definitely be interesting. You brought up the multiple passing touchdowns. 4 straight games he had it from weeks 14 through 17. Then got hurt early in that week 18 game. So the last 4 full games we saw him play, he threw 2 touchdowns in all of those games. It was his first time ever throwing 2 touchdowns in a game was that span. So get him some weapons. You got him a good play caller. This could all be very exciting for the Titans. And then maybe they just use all their draft picks on offense so their defense can still be bad. And that would be good for us. But Robert Saleh probably will not be down for that idea. But that will be it for today's episode. I want to thank you all for tuning in today to Locked On Fantasy Football. We'll be back tomorrow to talk about more of the latest NFL news and, the fallout of the Broncos and the Rams after losing in their championship games. Make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On Fantasy Football so you get all the latest episodes. And if you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Fantasy Football ad-free, plus members only Discord access, so you get to talk to us all year long, and we can fully help you win your championship leagues. Head to lockedonfantasyfootball.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to join the club. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye, y'all.